generation family farmer from Adair County, which is about 40 miles west of Des Moines. We raise corn and soybeans. I'm also a 10-year member of Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, and it's a great organization, and nobody works harder to improve communities than we do. So I'm very happy to be here with Occupy the World Food Prize movement tonight, and there's been a lot of good food for thought put on the table here from these guys. So thank you very much. The family farm life is all that I've ever known. I was a young adult in the 1980s when thousands of farmers were driven off their land here in Iowa. Federal farm policies were responsible for that at the time. But by 1995, legislation was passed in the state of Iowa called House File 519 that opened the door for corporate farming here in the state of Iowa, and that's what we see grow every year. In the 1970s, there were 90,000 farms that raised hogs here in the state of Iowa. Now, about 8,200 producers grow more than 16 million hogs here in the state of Iowa. The decrease in the number of producers for cattle, poultry, and other animals have mirrored this. Along with the loss of livestock producers has been the loss of family farmers and all the sellers of goods and services in our rural communities that served these farmers. The livestock buyers and sellers. The sale barns are gone. A fencing company. People that sell fencing materials. The farm and parts stores are gone. The equipment suppliers are gone. The veterinarians are gone. The feed suppliers, the livestock equipment suppliers, those are all gone from our small towns. We've seen the demise of our schools, churches, theaters, car dealerships, hospitals, clinics, shoe and clothing stores. Use your imagination because most of it's gone. With the loss of these families and businesses has come the loss of the economic activity throughout rural communities. This results in the loss of tax revenues. Fewer people are there to support the infrastructure to pay for the water and the electrical service to our communities. So, of course, our costs go up. Currently, one small CAFO in Union County will command up to $187,000 worth of infrastructure inputs by the county. Yet, their presence there adds no new tax revenue to county coffers because, you see, industrial scale livestock producers are taxed under the ag tax rules originally made for the small farmers. Therefore, a new factory farm raises no new revenue for the county, yet it uses large amounts of county resources in their infrastructure needs. You and I pay for that. As corporate agriculture slowly takes over the food production system in the United States, we call it vertical integration. There will be serious ramifications for those of us still on the land and for our rural counterparts, and George kind of outlined that as far as food sovereignty goes. No longer will the next generation take over the family farm. In a 1-mile radius of where we raised our children, there were 8 young men who would have loved to farm. That's all they wanted to do. But those 8 young men had to leave the area to find a job and raise their families. Not only are these families lost to the community, but the innate knowledge of the soil, how to protect it, how best to farm it, how best to raise and care for livestock, how best to raise and store food, that knowledge is gone too. Do we really believe that a CEO in a corner office can give hired men the tools and knowledge they need to till and harvest and raise livestock in a sustainable way? The answer is no, and we have about 1 more generation, and that innate knowledge is going to be gone. Will we trust corporate America to feed us at an affordable price just because they love to farm? I'm sure not, but that is what individual family farmers did for years. We produced at less than cost of production. Well, we love to farm, and we were going to stay there and do it. Do we trust corporate ag to care about soil erosion, air pollution, or water quality? Those of us who went to the EPC meeting know the answer to that question. That would be no. It has been my experience that they care only for what enhances their bottom line. Generally, clean air and water do not enhance the bottom line. In most CAFOs, newly bred sows stand in a gestation crate 2 feet wide, 7 feet long, for 114 days. We wouldn't put your dog in a cage like that for 114 days. Yet that's what we allow to happen to our livestock across this corporate farming state every day. Our family farm would never treat an animal that way. Our hogs and cattle always had food, shelter, shade, warmth, and water, and room to move around. And we looked at them as God's creatures to care for, not as a widget in a great big long CAFO. People continue to leave rural Iowa, or at the very least drive long distances to large urban areas just to have a job. In rural communities, residents and businesses won't build next to CAFOs due to flies and repulsive odors. There tends to be less retail and fewer retail options. Home values collapse next to CAFOs. Factory farms have not only driven rural residents away, but oversight of resources and animals is minimal at best. Iowa has 572 impaired waterways now, decreased recreational activities, and potable drinking water for humans as well as livestock, or as well as wildlife too, well, livestock and wildlife. Wildlife is really hunting for clean water now. Our oversight bureaus such as DNR are continually defunded even as CAFO numbers continue to climb. Mother Nature could clean up what small family farmers had to put out on the ground. But how much longer can she clean up after the millions of gallons of liquid manure applied to Iowa's soil every year? Not one time, not 2 times, but every year. Iowa needs a Marshall Plan to help her repopulate, a plan that will revitalize our small towns and cities and make them attractive to families again. Food production needs to be put back into the hands of families who know how to raise a healthy product and care properly for their crops, their animals, and the environment. This is the source of a strong and vibrant Iowa. It is the answer to our polluted waterways, to air pollution, the degradation of true animal husbandry that's happened over the years. It's part of the answer to our declining school system, as children would return to small schools and small town pride. It's the answer to the loss of our proud land-grant universities to corporate control. Iowa should not have to deal with the Environmental Protection Agency just to have clean water and proper oversight of industrial-scale agriculture. I'm a 10-year member of Iowa CCI. They're the only organization that works hard, CAFO by CAFO, one CAFO at a time, to reverse the vertical integration of corporate agriculture. We need all the members we can get. This is a fight that's going to go on for a long time. And so everyone needs to think about being a member of Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement to reverse this trend. When Gary Weiss, he's a rich man, I guess. He's a Harvard Business School graduate from Harlan, decided he'd like to put 7,000 sows by my house, 65 miles away from his house. I called Iowa CCI, and someone was there within a few days to help us. And the neighbors came together. Every day I prayed for God to open the door He wanted us to walk through and close the ones He didn't. The neighbors were there, Iowa CCI was there, and we went to the Environmental Protection Commission eventually after a lot of hard work over many months. And they did reverse the issuance of that permit. So it shows what happens when people come together, stand together, and don't give up and go home and say, well, it's out of my hands. Because it can be done, but we have to stand up and we have to fight. So thank you very much.